While you were sleeping, the Dane and the Pain baked cookies. Delicious! This week, the boys discuss a very broken Apple App Store and scams. Joel finds some chainmail from the future to use in outer space. And then we make some predictions around augmented, virtual, and mixed reality. This show injected with summer solstice and vitamin D.
And we are back with this special episode of the Dane The Pain, the show where all we have are hammers and everything looks like nails. Hey Joel, how are you going?
Yeah, and I'm not very good with a hammer actually, but I'm doing great. It's Lars. It is the longest day of the year here in our fair state of Alaska. Summer solstice. And I was talking about learn something new, and I never heard this referred to it like describing the length of the day. Well, there's something called civil twilight.
Civil Twilight, and that's not a terrible movie, is it?
SIVIL, twilight begins and civil twilight ends, which evidently is adjacent to the official sunrise and sunset. But our official sunset is 10:06 p.m. But civil twilight is 11:23. So
what does that mean?
I think basically what it means is that if you don't have cloud cover, that there's still ambient ambient life as well.
Ambient life.
Yeah, ambient.
We have a lot of that on this show.
That's right. We'll put you to sleep. No, so this is the time of year where, I'm typically, I wouldn't say neurotic, but I don't sleep that much. And this time of the year, it's like, blah, it's light out at, 4 in the morning or whatever, and it doesn't really get dark until, 10:30 to 11. So, which is great because you get a lot done.
Yeah,
and I didn't tell you, by the way, I nearly walked into a black bear 3 days ago or 4 days ago, getting up, going outside.
Yeah, avoid those.
Yeah, probably 10 feet away from me. I didn't even know he was there, getting something out of the car, turn around, and there he is, ho-de-do, walking across the street.
And suddenly Joel had brown underwear on.
Yeah, you know what? The thing is about when you generally when you run in, or when I run into him in town or out doing something, it usually happens so quickly that you don't even have time to be scared or anything else, and they don't really want anything to do with you. He just scampered up the side of the hill and was in the woods and gone. So, anyways, I'm yabbering way too much. Just where in the heck are you this week?
God, I don't know. No, I'm currently in Denmark, so the motherland. And it's about the same sunrise and sunset as you have. So I'm in the same boat. Yeah, I wake up before 5 every day because it's just sunlight coming in. Even though I should have been used to it, but I probably lost that a little bit.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I'm here. I've been here about a week now, and not quite 5 days. And I'm doing again. Last week I was in Norway doing NDC. So last time we spoke, I was in Sweden. Last week was amazing. This is still my favorite conference ever is NTC Oslo. There's just something about it. The way that they organize it, the way that you get food all the time. There's no lunch queues. No, this is important because you don't want to spend your lunchtime with 2,500 other people, right? And this level it's casual,
who wants to go
informal.
sit in line and stuff like that, right? You want to talk to people.
And there's plenty of opportunity to do that. And I recorded another 6 Pluralsight courses, which was ambitious. Let's say that was a very long day.
You did that in one day?
Yeah, I did that over 2 days. But one day we did 4 of them from about 8:30 in the morning till about 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
And with a couple of breaks in between, obviously. But it is you are on all the time. You can't actually sit and pretend to listen or whatever. It is really quite full mental brain activity the whole time.
Yeah, you
But I
have to
do
be
enjoy them,
engaged.
and they're good fun. And I hope people get a lot out of them. And I recorded a couple of really, really interesting ones as well that you might not expect, let's say.
Was that the one on the one on drugs or something? Hollow
No, no,
drugs or
no.
no, no,
So
no, that's something different.
that was a different. So NDC was the conference. I did my talk. I did a couple of user group things. I did another presentation for a company in Oslo, and then I went to Denmark, and I actually went straight from the airport to a 40th birthday, which was interesting. And then I've done a couple of talks in Copenhagen, and one of them was yesterday, the one you're referring to.
Wait a second, back up a second.
Yeah, backing
You're
up.
only 40 years old?
No, not even.
I thought you were like at least 64 or
That's
63.
I look 82. and
Oh, sorry. Cheap shot.
It's okay. It's like in your age, it's hard to remember everything for a long time.
I know. Yes.
And I did a talk yesterday for an IT company in the pharmaceutical industry, and yeah, I did call it HoloLens on drugs. So that was kind of funny, I thought. But yeah.
So you're kind of sick of listening to yourself talk, right?
Oh no,
After
never.
that much? Never? Never? I should imagine if doing that over a day and a half or 2 days, that I think at that point I would want to go and be quiet, for a while.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing was that, so I remember this very clearly, that we finished recording the Pluralsight content. So, there's 3 cameras and there's lots of light and there's an audio guy and there's like lots of people in the room and you're sitting there talking all day, right? And we ended it at 7:18 p.m. We were meant to end at about 6:30, so it wasn't too bad. But I had to host an event at the conference, like an evening event at the party at 7:30. So I had 12 minutes to pack up and run up and be on stage somewhere else and then be on for another hour and a half. So that
Yeah,
was,
and be up on step. Well,
yeah,
that's cool. That sounds exciting.
it was exciting. It was, I really enjoyed doing it. So I'm not complaining about the hours at all. It's always really good fun. When I finally travel, I try and really pack everything in anyway. So.
Well, there's lots of interesting things going on in the world besides you. Not that you're not interesting, Lars, right?
I'm not really. I just
I
talk.
was thinking, oh, we should talk a little bit about the Paris Air Show because actually 3 of the companies that we talked about in the past are all there doing stuff. But I think maybe we could do that another show. But
hmm
was it Zoomero or Zoomero? And then the electric engine company both are having little gigs over there at the Paris Air Show.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of interesting to see, to follow companies like that along over a period of time. You get to kind of see if they actually do what they say they're going to do. So, but maybe for another show, nag me about it.
Yeah,
We'll do that along with our Bezos Amazon follow up.
yeah, he can't be far off.
Yeah. So
Um,
what do you think we should talk about this week?
well, I found this. It kind of blew me actually away. It's kind of I didn't expect this. I found an article, and it's about the Apple App Store. And I don't know if the problem is the same for Google. I suspect it is not. But the title of this is How to Make $80,000 per Month on the Apple App Store. It is far easier than you think. No luck or perseverance necessary. And that kind of sounds, it's almost like clickbait. And then part of it goes, really? Okay. What's the catch? What's the trick here? And this article then goes through and says, okay, last year, Apple has reported that they paid out $70 billion to developers. That's a lot of money. That is a crazy amount of money, right? So not last year, that's overall, and 21 billion of that was last year. So, massive amount of money is paid out to developers.
Well, so 21 billion last year.
Yeah, out of 70
so
overall.
70 billion for the life of the App Store.
Yeah. And then 21 billion last year, which is a massive spike, right? That's a huge percentage. And this guy goes through and says, okay, so what's making all this money? Because he says, as far as he knows, people that he talked to and that he know and that he see uses, the App Store aren't downloading any more apps than they normally would. So he looks at what the top grossing apps are. And he says there's a productivity category. So I don't have an iPhone, but the App Store has categories. And there's a productivity category. And it has, Dropbox, Microsoft, OneDrive, Evernote, those sort of apps that we would expect to be there. And then they have number 10 on the most popular or highest grossing, or whatever they are, is an app called Mobile Protection Clean and Security VPN.
Okay, hold that thought just for a second. For those listeners out there that give me grief about how I talk about mobile in Microsoft's not having a phone hardware doesn't necessarily mean they're not mobile. For just to point out in this article, the number 9 on that top productivity list is Microsoft OneDrive.
Yep.
So, I mean, Microsoft makes software that's mobile and is actually in the top 10, I think the top 10% or 5% of grossing apps of all the apps for the App Store. But anyways, I digress. Back to this number 10 mobile protection.
Clean and security VPN, which doesn't make any sense, right? It's not proper English as we know it. It's misspelt. It's got bad punctuation. It just looks really bad.
Yeah, the colon is in a weird
Yeah,
spot
exactly.
too.
And this guy goes, hang on, why is this number 10 for highest grossing? What's happening? He looks it up on something called Sensor Tower, where you can see app revenue. It's grossing $80,000 a month. And there's just...
According to this article.
Yeah, according to this article, which is probably not completely far off. And then, he goes through it. He reads the description of it, which is also full of English words, but not English sentences. And I'm not trying to be derogatory here, but it's like there's so many flags here of, hey, something's up, that you go, why is this number 10? And then it says, full scan for duplicate name, phone, email, no name, no phone, no email. And you go, what is this? So then he looks at the reviews. They've got some fake 5-star reviews, as a lot of apps have, unfortunately. And then he actually downloads it. He actually does download it. It's a free app that he downloads. And he opens it up and says, hey, I need access to your contacts. And he goes, no, you don't. So,
So it's the first question the application poses is not, do you want to set up an account? This is a tutorial how it works. The first question is, who are your contacts?
Yeah, let me have access to all your contacts, which is a common thing for apps to ask permissions to access things that they need. But why would a security/VPN app need access to your contacts? Also, another thing is that this isn't done by a company, it's done by an individual. And if there's one thing you don't want, it's all of your data going through someone else's server, which is what a VPN is. But you want that to be a reputable company. You don't want it to be, Joe Blow. There's so many red flags in this. So it comes up with a few menus, and of course it says your device is at risk, because that's how they get you to click on things. So you can analyze your device. You can do a quick scan or a full scan, and then you can secure your internet, which is always nice, You you want to secure your internet, and it says it's not safe.
Yes, you don't want to have an insecure internet,
So you click on this secure internet
that way.
And it comes up with another pop-up, which is, by the way, all this is done. There's no design in it. It's all just one color. It's really horribly done. Looks like a Xamarin Forms type thing without any styling whatsoever. And then it comes up and says, hey, do you want to start this free trial? Cancel it anytime you want. Antivirus, instantly used, full of smart antivirus, whatever that means. And if you click on the start the free trial, it asks for your Touch ID. So on iPhone, there's a fingerprint sensor on the newer ones. It asks you to touch on, which is your authentication, right? Saying, yeah. And if you do that, if there's a fine print that says, hey, you're now signing up for a $99.99 7-day subscription that renews indefinitely. So that's your free trial, right? So with that,
99 US dollars. We're not talking about
not Zimbabwean dollars. It's $100 US
yes,
a week. in perpetuity. So suddenly you sign up for $400 a month without really knowing it because you just touched on, right? And yeah, you and me would
Well,
probably have red flags all over this thing. Go, yeah, there's no way in hell. But apparently it had.
to secure the internet. I mean, think
It's true,
about
it's
that. I
cheap.
mean, yeah, Google and Microsoft, they spend billions of dollars trying to make sure the internet is
Yeah.
secure. This guy's doing it for $100 a week.
And
That's
you
a
did have a good
deal.
quote saying, hey, if you do it, you win 5 internets.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and it's, but just, he puts it this way, it's like, he gets 50,000 downloads a month. 50,000 downloads. He just needs 0.4% to make $80,000. And there are a lot of people that are kind of, computer literates that don't have an interest in it, that don't understand it, and they're just no protection. But before we delve into this, it gets worse. I know. So he goes, well, how do you actually get 50,000 apps? How's that downloads of this app in the first place? How is that even possible? Like, it's so, yeah.
Obviously,
So
yeah,
he searches
something
for
whack
stuff
about it.
in the App Store. And they now have a new thing, which is ads in the App Store. You can advertise your app in the App Store. And in this case, he searches for virus scanner, and he gets another app ad for an app come up that says protection for iPhone mobile security VPN by the same guy, and that's an ad. The problem is that the ad looks exactly like a non-ad for an app, except there's a little tiny tag that says ad. That's it. And there is apparently, now I can't verify this obviously, but according to this article, there's no check or balances of these ads. Anyone can create an ad for anything. And that's a scary thing.
And they'll assign sort of a typical user, it gets displayed how many times with that query, or there's a line of similar ads that get played in order.
Yep.
Whenever that.
Another example is a web password generator. And all it does is just do a random string. That's all the ad does, and the app does, right? And that's $50 a month.
Well, to me, I mean, this is brilliant. If you're the person who's developing this particular app, what you've done, and if your Apple is brilliant because, well, first of all, you only need a small number of people. It takes probably a limited amount of time to create and sell the app. It's something very simple to pull and close down if people get after you. And you probably can recover your investment in a couple months. And Apple benefits because, first of all, it gets its cut. But second of all, the guy that's making all the money, or lady, then goes ahead and spends money on ads in the App Store.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So it's getting paid multiple ways.
Yep. And it's
so there's a pretty strong. I mean, it seems like there would be a strong desire for Apple to, shuffle its feet and scuff at the ground and go, there's nothing
I
to
know
see
it's hard
here.
to fix or whatever it is they might have. But I mean, what this also does is it raises alarm bells for me. And say they've still got 21 billion in revenue, when the Android Play Store has about 9, I think.
Well, and also, how it depends how they count that. So if they're cycling through the same revenue twice, they're basically, this guy is giving them a cut of what he takes, and then he's paying them, really. I mean, it is still revenue, but it's not what I'd call, it's not revenue that I would count on into the future, unless you can count on this particular type of developer of throwing off a string of knockoffs of this over a period of 2 years. But it's one of those things, right? It's like, if you go to a casino and you win, $5,000, that feels really good.
Well, yeah.
And you might try to go back and win again, but chances are, over time, you're going to end up feeling lousy, sitting on the curb.
Yeah.
wishing you had just taken the money and run. So I'm curious if they'll crack down. And what's interesting to me is if if people, I'm wondering how many people have actually taken the time, like this gentleman did, to go and research
Oh, very few.
this these.
And if you only have, say you only got, this guy get, yeah, as an estimate, this guy's saying, let's say he gets 200 people in a month. You're not going to hear about those 200 people, right? You're not going to, Apple might get complaints from half of them, or all of them maybe, and they might do something about it or not. But in any case, it's still there for a few months. And there are ways that I think we can fix this. And I don't know if this is a problem with the Google Play Store, because I know that the Google Play Store has been plagued by lots of, spam apps and, scam apps and flashlight apps and all that stuff. That's been a problem for a long time.
I know that there's a lot of those, that seek to get access to your information, but I'm not really familiar with many that have like tried to go for the big dollars like this. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if you can. I'm not sure you can sign up that easily in the Play Store
oh, interesting.
to recurring. I'm not sure. You might be able to. I just don't know. But in this case, and this applies to all app stores, the way that there are some steps outlined that you can actually do to make this a lot better, quite easily, I would say. Now, the first one is just, to me, it's just obvious. Hire, 10 people. I'm sure Apple can afford to hire another 10 people or whatever, and just go through on the device or whatever, the top apps and see, are any of these apps, do they look suspicious? If they are, investigate, and if they are scams, remove them.
Well, it would
Like this
actually
guy
be,
would have taken,
yeah, it would be very easy to
yeah.
go through and look for outliers. I wouldn't even do it by top 10. I would find, they probably have a standard bell curve for when a new application is released, and look for outliers. And you pull those outliers and screen them down one time. Say look for 5 to 10 different variables that might indicate there's an issue, and then you
Yeah.
do a routine Q&A on a percentage of those to make sure. And the thing is that what this does is it inflates. If this is taking place wholesale in the store, which I don't know that it is, it inflates how popular the store is.
Very much.
And I think long term, it's actually not in their best interest.
No, it isn't. No, of course it isn't. But that's when you have shareholders that you need to pay lots of money all the time. Long term, it suddenly becomes second priority, right?
Well, and if you were Joe Blow, and there's a lot of people that I follow and converse with online that develop for iOS, and these guys and gals, they put a lot of time and effort into developing games and useful tools for people for their devices. And then you have folks come in who are just, in essence, for whatever reason, they just want to make their buck. I mean, to me, that would be really disheartening. I think, and I think the
Definitely.
premise of this article, this $80,000 developer, I don't think there's very many of them. The
I hope
statistic.
not.
Well, I no, I mean, I think that the statistic that I saw was something like, and I've told you this before, 90% of the profit for developers in the iOS store, the App Store, is controlled by about 10% of the developers, and most of
hmm
those are
hmm
not people like you, or the single guy lady in their apartment. Um, so it's a bit of a misnomer, I think, for folks that you can make a ton of money developing as an individual for iOS.
No, you can't. You can't. It's hard. It is really hard. And especially if all of the app stores, I mean, the Windows stores had this problem as well
Sure.
with, that you can download the Chrome app or the Firefox app in 100 different varieties, and they were
Yeah.
all fake, right? So something like that. And there's a few other points that he outlines here. Better UI on Touch ID subscriptions. So in this case, it was this small fine print that suddenly said, "Hey, you're signing up for $100 a week." Just make it more obvious that you're actually going to spend a lot of money right now. Because it also says free trial is the text. So obviously you can set the text yourself and then charge anyway. Review subscriptions. How can you even subscribe to something that's called full virus malware scanner? in this case.
I only want.
seems to be no review of them.
I just want the partial one.
Yeah, I know exactly. And there's no trial. Like they've created a product that says trial when it isn't. It's really, really hard apparently to delete a subscription from the App Store because again, it's in their interest to not do this. And just have some proofreading of these ads.
Well, I think but I think it's also sort of we've had discussions before about, sort of the ethics and coding and in licensing potentially in people that, provide industrial or, you know, um, business type of software development. And, and I kind of think this sort of falls in that same category, whereas, the industry is still scrambling to keep up with the people who are more ingenious about finding ways to work around the system of checks and balances that are in place.
For sure.
Because
Definitely.
there will always be scammers, and unfortunately people who can be taken advantage.
Oh, that's just the human nature, right? There's always someone looking for an easy buck. But that doesn't mean we can't do something to counter it. And it just seems in this case that the app stores, all of them, to be honest, are just not quite using enough resources to make this a safe place.
Well, it seems to me like in that case, if you if you have an app and it's $100 a week, to me that would be a flag, because I'm trying to think of things that I think are valuable enough for me to pay $100 a week. Well, maybe a car might be valuable enough for me to have a payment of
Yeah,
$400 a
I was about to
month,
say
right?
that's almost car payment territory, right?
Yeah, well, that's my point. That's just stupid. I
Mm.
mean, there's somebody that should have been pulled to start off with. There is nothing out there that's worth that much in the App Store.
No, no. And just another thing you could say, if you have anything that's 99.99 recurrently, well, just flag it. Anything over $50 or whatever, because there wouldn't be
Yeah,
that many, because most developers do the right thing.
yeah,
So there wouldn't
absolutely.
be a lot, and you just review those. I think there's so many options of what you can do, low-hanging fruit you can do to counteract this, that there's almost no excuse.
Yeah, and I think the review system is also, whack, but that's always been the case. And,
It
for
has,
most,
yes.
I read an article and sort of watched, there was a gentleman that actually took some folks into his store where he created fake, you could buy for ratings for your app. And he had, I think it was something like 1,200 iPhones of various ages, right? And all they were doing were set up with dummy accounts, and you could pay him a set amount of money, and he would go ahead and set up, the reviews to get the number of reviews up, and had it set up to do similar things for, for
Hmm.
YouTube or things like that. So the lengths to which people go just amaze me. I mean, it's almost comical, but it's also kind of sad too. But literally the walls in this guy's, he had all the shelving set up almost like in a shoe store where you see the shoe sitting
Oh, really?
vertically. All on the
Jeez,
walls were just rows and rows of iPhones. Yeah, it must have been really warm in there.
that's amazing.
I should. I'll try to see if I can find a link to that. It was, it was in Russia, but I'm sure that takes place in China and in the U.S. as well. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. Sweden as well. Sweden's terrible for that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Sweden's. I think that's probably the biggest industry in Sweden, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh dear, poor Sweden.
I'm probably
Uh,
never gonna go there, so it's okay.
I've just been there.
You snuck across the border.
I did. I did. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm
Uh,
glad you made it out.
so yeah, I think that's a well worth discussion to continue to have on wherever you need to, because yeah, we need to fix these things.
Well, and that article was on Medium, so hopefully we can put a link on our show notes for people to go. And I can't recall the guy's name that wrote it or did the research, but for people to listen, it would be great to go click on that and check it out and leave your thoughts. There were a lot of comments, I think, on his article, so
Hmm.
it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It's. Yeah. Hmm. Anyway,
Hmm.
next one. Moving
It's
on.
it's all
Um,
it's all good.
yeah. You found this interesting other article, which just the fact that it says chainmail from the future just had me. Had me a chainmail from the future.
I had you a Gmail.
That's pretty cool.
And yeah, so this is another one of those sort of gee whiz things, and it's got a little bit to do with NASA. It's got a little bit to do with 3D printing, but it's one of those where you see newer technologies sort of helping NASA be more efficient, and in the past they've had types of steel used to reflect light to shield lunar modules, spaceships in space, and they've
Mm-hmm.
had metal to protect I was against radiation and things like that on the inside. And what the 3D printing has allowed them to create a single use metal. And I'm having a hard time describing it here, Lars, because it's old, but basically it's foldable that can be used for um, all three types of uses. And it's cool because, well, first of all, yeah, like you say, it looks like chainmail, but also because the notion is that you can, conceivably at some point this could be printed in space,
Mm. Yeah, I
right?
don't know how
So
that
they could
works, but that is
this
cool.
Yeah, I mean I mean, if they can do it on Earth, then conceivably they can do it in space. And the whole idea is if you're going to have to travel a long way in space, you can't bring everything with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to make stuff and you have to reuse stuff,
Yep.
and yeah, unless of course we develop what's that thing they had on Star Trek where they just press a button and it would magically appear the
I,
food
I never watched
or
Star
something.
Trek.
Maybe it wasn't even Star Trek. Maybe it was a show or some other show, but I'm just guessing there. So the other thing about it is that if you can use something for three purposes, that means you take a third amount of the material,
Mm. No, that's true.
right?
Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
decrease payload
Yep.
and all that. What would be useful on here down on planet Earth is things like insulation, survival. I always remember survival blankets, which were, they kind of look like aluminum foil,
Mm-hmm.
real
Mm-hmm.
thin and lightweight,
Yep.
but great for retaining heat. And something like that, it would be very practical. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a little GIF here at how it works, and it's you print it, with a 3D printer. They call it 4D printing, which I guess is 3D printing with an extra purpose because you're sort of multi-layering the 3D things, and um, and it's really flexible. It's really strong. It's really lightweight, and it can expand and contract. It has all of these different properties that are really useful in space as well. And it's as you said, it's really light, but it also can be really stiff or hard that you can use it on spacecrafts for certain
they were
applications as
talking about
well.
it like you could, conceivably it could be used for tires if you had a, lunar rover. It could be
Mm.
used for that purpose. So the idea is sort of thinking about, well, you don't have to create a single item for each of these purposes. What if this material could be developed over time to morph into something else, and I don't
Hmm.
know. I just thought it was kind of compelling. The article is pretty short and to the point, and I think it was on Wired, but personally, it just looks really freaking cool. you know, it's it's
It is
shiny.
shiny.
That's
It's
right.
very shiny. But it makes sense. Like you take it further. If you could 3D print elements or segments, and if you could either have them self-assemble or you could have something else assemble them automatically, you would start having this sort of all its own ecosystem that could build things in space, right? And it would be much safer. Wouldn't have to send people up there. So yeah, it makes sense.
And all from NASA, JPL, and what is it? Yeah, Caltech. So again, not to beat up on that point, but a nice public-private partnership using
Hmm.
private enterprise technology as well to create something that has probably uses that I can't even imagine, or in or maybe not. I don't know. It's shiny, Lars.
Yeah, well, it's space stuff, man. No, it's. We'll put a link
Absolutely.
up on the website, the show notes, and it is very early days. It's like when we talk about the bendable holographic material and all that stuff. But it's interesting to see what researchers are putting their minds to and trying to start somewhere and
Yeah.
make something better, right?
And I think you probably could, if you needed to, you could make it into sort of a rope, and you could use it for towing your Jeep.
Oh, well, you need that. You need to tow that a lot.
Sorry. I'd I'd take a shot at you
Oh
about a
dear.
Jeep in what months I've laid off that. I know.
I know.
Yes.
It's
But,
been
oh,
a
by the way,
while.
how's your brick?
I
Well, it's in Australia. You wouldn't know, right?
what
No, 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 not
my
your
head,
head. I mean your BMW, the new brick, the brick.
the brick.
Well, that's what
Is
I
that what it's
call it.
called?
It looks like a brick, a big
Why is it a
square
brick?
thing.
Ah, right. Well, it's still it still is. It's put away. It's got a
Oh,
cover on it. It sits in a safe spot. Yeah, well, because we can't register it until we take the engine out. So, as in, put it this way, there's nothing wrong with it, but you got to take the engine out.
really?
And it sounds really critical. The problem is there's something called a main seal, which is a kind of a gasket that sits between the transmission, the bell
Mm-hmm.
housing of the transmission, and the engine, and it's leaking. There's oil coming out of that. So that means that oil comes out and it actually drops on all the warm bits
Yeah.
of the engine, and then you get white smoke coming out the engine compartment, and that's not legal. Right?
Yeah,
That's a
that's
safety issue.
fire.
Well, any oil leak is a safety issue, right? So, yeah, well, often people go, oh, it's only dripping a little bit. No, no. If you have an oil leak on your car, you need to fix it. It's very important that there are no oil leaks because well, for once, it looks terrible and you drip oil everywhere on your engine, on the road, wherever you visit. But also when it gets hot, it starts burning, or things lose lubrication. There's all these sort of things that need oil to function. It's how a car works, right? Most people are not aware of this, but you need to have oil in the engine.
There's,
So,
my son's kind of a gearhead, and he showed me this. He shared this, and I'll have to throw it on your timeline sometime. This video of a guy trying to destroy a Volvo, and he was seeing all the things he could. He drained all the engine out of it, and he'd drive it for like 2 miles, oil out of it, the engine. He'd drive it for 2 miles, and he'd throw like
oh,
some quarters in
oh,
there, and then he'd drive it for a couple miles. And the whole
oh,
point was to see how far he could drive this Volvo before he finally killed it.
not far.
It
Not
was pretty
far at
funny.
all.
Anyways,
Um,
I'm sorry. What are
yeah.
were you going to talk about? Anything else?
Yeah. So now I had this discussion. Now I wanted to pick your brain. So I've been doing quite a few HoloLens and mixed reality talks over the last, say, 3 weeks. Somewhere in this vicinity of probably 8 of them, I think. And I get lots of questions, and it's an interesting conversation to have with people. And what I've noticed is that I've always kind of had this slide in my slide deck that says, hey, this is augmented reality, this is virtual reality, and kind of in the middle here we have
Yeah.
mixed reality. And it's been pretty true, and it's a good way for people to kind of segregate which area that their project falls in, because you need different tooling for each, you need different devices for each. But now soon there'll be, so I got approved for this Windows 10 mixed reality trial program, right? And they send you an Acer headset device that runs Windows 10. So these are the new devices that are coming out, the sort of second generation. So they're not like HoloLenses, even though they kind of run the same software in them. So HoloLens has a see-through visor and holograms that is projected in front of your eyes on what's called waveguides. These new devices one's from Acer, Lenovo's doing one, HP, Dell. There's probably a couple more coming, but there's a fair few companies that are starting doing these. They're more like virtual reality devices. And they're called mixed reality because they have inside-out tracking, which is it scans the room that you're in, and then it creates a 3D model that is then used in your virtual reality world. So you see the room you're in, but as a representation of a 3D model inside your visor, inside the goggles. And my point is with this is that I think that this distinction between AR, MR, VR is becoming more and more fluid. Because is this then an MR device or is it a VR device? Because you can see the room, but you can't see the room. And yeah.
Yeah. And does
I'm
nomenclature
not,
really matter? I
yeah,
mean,
it's,
so it matters to you,
no, it
right?
doesn't.
And it matters to those people that are developing and supporting and doing all the work to make these products. But to Joe Blow on the street, to me, what I'm curious about is, and sort of things like the iPhone really defined, what mobile means. So if you say think of mobile, people think of the brick in their hand, the rectangular shaped phone in their hand. And what I'm curious
Mm-hmm.
about is who defines what that thing is called. I think there's each these big players have all sort of tried to throw it out there a little, what they think it's going to be or what they want it to be, and I'm curious to see if one of those sticks or if there's something else that rises up that we're not seeing, you know, because if you ask,
Mm-hmm.
the next time you're walking around town and ask somebody what they think VR is or what they think AR, and my guess is you probably are going to get similar answers to describe all or mixed reality. You're going to get similar answers describing all three. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think people really care.
I think
But
you're
I
right.
don't know.
I don't think anyone knows what mixed reality is outside of that sort of little tiny space that I live in. I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. But having said that, the say the Oculus Rift, which was one of the very first VR devices, their latest beta version of their software now also do inside-out tracking. So that's the same thing. So that's coming as well with mixed reality, and apparently the HTC Vive, there's rumors that will lose its tethering, so it'll be a self-contained device as well. So everything is kind of moving towards that sort of same set of features. I still argue that the HoloLens is still miles ahead of any of it in terms of the actual mixed reality capability, but it kind of doesn't matter because no one buys one because they're too expensive. And it's the technology and the experience we get from using it at the early stages that will define what the next devices are going to look like, which are the ones we're
Yeah,
going to
it
get.
doesn't. So the way I view it is, see, the HoloLens is me trying to make a 12-course meal. What people want is a hamburger that tastes really good and it can be made the same way every time, and it'll always it'll always be there, right? So that's the issue with the HoloLens, is that it's trying to be a lot of really cool things, and
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it's very hard for it to do one thing every time. And I think, I'm just kind of curious to see if that's what happens with all these efforts, is you find someone comes out with it's sort of that one use case that captures everybody's attention and then takes off. But I got to tell you, there's been like literally nothing from any of the manufacturers of, say, Oculus. Um, the amount of information coming out about sales, like, just stopped like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I got,
Mm-hmm.
and my guess is because, like we discussed a long time ago, there isn't a lot of demand for this stuff, and the demand that is there is, generally from hardcore gamers, and in some, and that's pretty much it. And my guess was, and I still think this is true, that the demand for these devices, it actually sells more computer hardware, in revenue than it will in the
Mm-hmm.
actual devices themselves. So this is a boon for the PC industry. The
Yeah, it's certainly, there's a lot of it where you do need this nuclear power reactor next to you to run it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much all of them to an extent. And I saw a lot of that, a lot of the advertising, a lot of the push over the holidays was just that. Your new gaming PC comes with. But I digress. We're off your subject. You're right. That convergence. I had seen that mixed reality term pop up, and I'd asked you about it because I thought, well, I wonder whose effort this is to sort of rename the category and try to own the conversation.
Yeah, and here's my prediction is that over time, I don't know if it's 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it might be, there won't be any of those differences. It'll all be, say, XR or digital reality or something. It'll be a single definition of what you need. I think that's probably the key.
Well, I'm gonna quote you on that. So in AR VR mixed reality, in 3 to 5 years, will all
refer to the same thing.
Be referring to the same product.
That's how we roll on this show.
Sorry. Is that it? I can't believe you're in Denmark and you don't have any good I don't know, what's something that's sort of stereotypical in Danish besides Ant-Man.
Ant-Man's Danish?
I thought so. Isn't the original cartoon, wasn't it a Danish cartoon?
I don't know. It might be. I had no idea.
Yeah, I think you need to look it up.
I did learn. I learned the other day that
Sorry.
Unity 3D is a Danish product. I never knew. So there you go. But no, I think before we descend into complete misery here, it is time for the joke of the week.
Right.
It's the joke of the week, so come along with me. I cannot promise it will be funny, but it's the joke of the week.
Yes. So, a man flying in a hot air balloon suddenly realizes he's lost. He reduces height and spots a man down below. He lowers the balloon further and shouts to get directions. "Excuse me, can you tell me where I am?" The man below says, "Yes, you're in a hot air balloon hovering 30 feet above the field." "You must work in information technology," says the balloonist. "I do," replies the man. "How'd you know?" "Well," says the balloonist, "everything you've told me is technically correct, but it's of no use to anyone." The man below replies, "Well then, you must work in management." "I do," replies the balloonist, "but how did you know?" "Well," says the man, "you don't know where you are or where you're going, but you expect me to be able to help you. You got there by nothing but hot air. You're in the same position you were before we met, but now it's my fault." I thought that was brilliant.
You have no idea how appropriate that is for me right now. So.
I know. So that is the top-rated joke on Stack Overflow on programming jokes, and I thought it was very appropriate.
Well, we've run long again this week, Lars, but everybody check out the website on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And if you have ideas, show suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest, hit Lars or I up, and we'll see what we can make happen. We're always interested in new and unusual ideas.
Exactly, absolutely. Find us wherever: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube,
Denmark,
Joel's letterbox.
Yeah, that's right. You can send me a telegram if you'd like, or via carrier, but not
Pony Express,
not the European carrier pigeon.
No, that's right. All right, enough rambling, sir.
Yes.
I'm gonna go have breakfast.
Good day to you, sir.
Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening in on another episode of the Dane the Pain. We record across the Pacific, across hemispheres, and across time zones. You can find us on www.daneandthepain.com. Our Twitter handle is Dane_Pain, and we are the Dane and the Pain on YouTube and Facebook. We're also on your favorite podcast app,
including iTunes, and please join our fan club by clicking the Register Now button on our website to know about upcoming shows and any free stuff we may have to share. See you next time on The Dane and the Pain.